Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine, and this video is going to take you to 1971. For some of us, I'm taking you back to 1971. For others, it's a place perhaps you've not been before. And it's part of my playlist show. So basically, it's a selection of albums that I'm playing this week. It's not the best albums of 1971. It's not that kind of video. There's loads of those out there. This is going to be just albums I picked off the shelf, and I thought what I'd do, because I know many of you like it when I just share my personal stories, is I'm going to pick the albums. I'm going to say where I was when I first heard them or what I was doing when I bought them as best I can. This is completely unscripted. So some of them, and they're not in order either. I could have easily organised myself so much better with my CD recommendations and the vinyl ones next door, whatever, or on the shelf next to me, and I could have gone from one to the other. So they're all in a complete mess of a pile. So I don't really know what's going to come next. So we're just going to see what happens. So if you're all sitting comfortably, here we go. The first album from 1971 that I've decided to play this week is Focus, Moving Waves. This album is fantastic. In a way, it contains one of the embryonic progressive rock metal tracks in a way, which is Eruption, which takes up the whole of side 2, with some of the most amazing guitar I think I'd ever heard. Jan Ackerman. It's amazing. I mean, it was not... See, I heard this in 72-ish, and when I was at school, we used to go to music class, and I think the teacher was called Mr. Simpson, I think. What used to happen in music class was that the teacher would play classical music and everyone would just sit there, not engaged, because he just put it on and go, this is Beethoven. No background, or he might say when he was born, or a bit of, the kind of stuff that you just drift away. I mean, if he'd said something like, this is a piece of music that really makes me feel X, Y, and Z, and it always is something I play at certain times, I'd go, oh, right, we didn't. But it was a time when Sylvia was in the charts and Hocus Pocus were in the charts. These two singles, which were basically instrumentals with the yodeling and stuff, they've been on top of the pops. They were in the charts by a band called Focus from Holland. And the music teacher, who could feel that there was a sense of classical music within them, played them. And that made him sort of cool for a small while. And it introduced me to Focus. A couple of my friends, Paul Mansell, who's sadly no longer with us, he was a huge fan, and his older brother was as well. And Focus at the Rainbow, 1973. So it's around that time. And then I started looking back. But the guitar playing on Moving Waves, on Hocus Pocus, those guitar runs by Jan Ackerman. And I am very lucky that I've interviewed Taj Van Leer as well. I'm so grateful that I've been able to do that. But this album, to this day, is a very special album to me. Unfortunately, Mr. Simpson isn't, because he was the only teacher when I was at school who gave me the slipper for talking out in class, although afterwards he did say it was a mistake and he realised I was only answering a question for the kid behind me who wanted help on something. I never really trusted grown-ups very much after that, which is why I've tried not to be one. But Moving Waves, superb. Where should you go if you can't find a vinyl one that's in good nick, which is probably highly unlikely? I would recommend Focus 50 Years box set. It's well worth it. It comes with tons of stuff from the Old Russell test, lots of video stuff as well as all the albums. It's fantastic. Hocus Pocus, don't you? But isn't it an amazing song? There's nothing else like it, is it? Right, what next is on my pile? It's still, well, I'm staying in the world of progressive rock. And I'm going to go with Yes, Fragile. One of the best progressive rock albums of all time, isn't it? Think about it as I put these albums up, how you start to think all of these were coming out in the space of 12 months and I've only picked a few. Can you imagine what it's like? Well, imagine what it's like now. And you think, oh gosh, there's so many albums, how am I going to afford them? You couldn't afford them. I'm at school. And these are coming out one after the other. I must also point out that in 1971, I was 12. So I was still very interested in Lego and aircraft spotting. So a lot of this was going to be slightly later on once I basically went exploring. This album came to the fore when I was old enough to go on holiday to Newquay with my mates. And Newquay, then in Cornwall, had a place called the Victoria Bars, which is a rock pub, and also the Sailor's Arms also had a rock jukebox and stuff. And Roundabout was on that. So this would be about late 70s, I guess. And I love that track. And I went to see Yes at Stafford Bingley Hall on the Going for the One tour. So, and then from there I went to the Yes album, which is probably my favourite. And then because of Roundabout, I went here. I mean, this to this day is not my overall favourite Yes album. It has some fantastic tracks, obviously, and again the classical aspects of it are there as well, with Cans and Brahms, etc. South Side of the Sky, Heart of the Sunrise. I would recommend. There's multiple versions on CD. The Blu-ray Stephen Wilson remix is the one you need, and the Blu-ray, the one's just come out, the Super Deluxe Edition, which is upstairs at the time of me doing this video. But I'm going to enjoy playing this again, and Roundabout, because it had a kind of guitar riff, didn't it? But it's always remained very special to me, just because of the way it's been played, and something so different about Yes. But yes, Fragile, 1971. And of course, I liked the album when I eventually bought it because it came with that little booklet with all the pictures of the band in, which was Faberuni. And I love the Roger Dean artwork as well. But also as the 70s progressed, I started to hear other things. And this was, again, I wasn't that far out of 1971 when the next track from the next album started to bubble into my subconscious. And it's Who's Next. This is a very special album. Just making sure I've got a CD version nearby. I have. I would always recommend the Super Deluxe Edition, massive box set, but of course that is quite expensive. So I'm going to point to one that isn't as much money as that. There are various tracks on this now that mean a lot to me. Behind Blue Eyes, etc. Of course, that's the one that's streamed the most, which is strange, really, because I would have thought it would have been Barbara O'Reilly and Won't Get Fooled Again. Barbara O'Reilly's the one for me. The way that starts with the sequenced synthesizer and the power chords coming in, and Sally Take My Hand, that line, and it's about escaping. This is how I understood it. It probably means something completely different, but it was the idea of meeting someone and moving out of the preconceived ideas of how you're going to live your life. You're going to get an apprenticeship and go into a factory and meet someone and all the rest of it. It was this idea that you could escape. That's this idea. This is what I heard when I heard it. This is what it meant to me. Of course, when I did end up working in a factory, Won't Get Fooled Again was the song. Won't Get Fooled Again is probably one of the most timeless songs next to War Pigs by Black Sabbath that is still lyrically as relevant when you turn on the news as anything else out there. Yeah, Won't Get Fooled Again and War Pigs. There's probably others, but those two. And anyway, that's from 1970. But Won't Get Fooled Again. I think there was a time in the 70s, probably late 70s, early 80s, when I felt I was tired of that track. But as the years have rolled by, I've fallen in love with it all over again because of the power of it, I think, because of the emotional aspect of the lyrics and Keith Moon's drumming at that, the whole plethora of how the emotive feel of it. It's just fantastic. 2 CD version. It's got the Young Vic concert on there, and this is remixed, and it's superb. So that would be my recommendation for a CD. The Who. Who's next? 1971. The next one is, I'm going to say thank you to one of my YouTube members, patrons, and it's Yogi from Germany, from Berlin. And this is Under Open Skies by Luther Grosvenor, who again I've been very lucky to interview. And I'm not saying that to name drop. I'm just really graciously grateful that by doing this, I've been able to talk to people I would have never have thought would have ever have happened. I'm quite a shy guy, so the fact that I've spoken to some people who I have so much respect for. This album, Luther Grosvenor from Spooky Tooth and also Motley Hoople. I saw this at Weddington's Rare Records, and I was always intrigued by the fact that in those days you could make records with big gatefold sleeves. I've reviewed this separately. And they just had a kind of innocence about them, really, that wouldn't happen now. The fact that Island Records would, it almost felt as if you're in a band and you just went up to, Chris and said, oh, can I make a record? Yeah, of course. June Capaldi's on this and everything. And it's just from Evesham and their mates. And it's like, it's a kind of hippiedom of it. But it's lovely. And there is an esoteric CD, which is superb, with a couple of extra bonus tracks on as well. But it's that kind of innocence of it, really. And as I said, I saw it in Weddington's Rare Records. I bought Paul Kossoff's Backstreet Core album from 73. And I'd seen this and thought, oh, his guitars, I wonder if I'll get that. And it was decades until I eventually bought a copy. And then Yogi from Berlin gifted me this one, which I'll treasure always. It's a lovely album. He's a great, fine guitar player. Of course, many of you will know him as Ariel Bender from Motley Hoople, but superb stuff. And of course, Spooky Tooth are a marvellous band. The next one has been on my playlist before, but it's from 1971, and I've been playing it a lot, so here it is. And it's Caravan in the Land of Grey and Pink. There are multiple versions, but I would recommend that you go for the Stephen Wilson 5.1 remix 2CD Blu-ray version. This is an unusual album, and I came to very late on, really. When I say very late on, probably the 90s, because it's not guitar-driven. It's kind of strange keyboard sound-driven. And Golf Girl is the one that probably brought me in. And it has that enormous track, doesn't it? That is a journey into the land of early 70s prog, 9 feet underground. Caravan were as inaccessible to me as Van de Graaff Generator. Of course, they're not. They're nothing like that. But they were then. But now, of course, because I've absorbed Gentle Giant and Van de Graaff Generator, I can go anywhere in the world of prog, really. But this artwork is typical of its time and absolutely beautiful. It's worth buying for that and just looking at it. Oh, silent vinyl. Let's just stream it, and buy that. But it's beautiful. This isn't an original, by the way. If you're thinking, wow, look at Phil's got In the Land of Grey and Pink and it looks mint, it's because it's a reissue. Okay. Next. Mahavishnu Orchestra, The Inner Mountain Flame. Gosh, this was good. This was good. This is good. This is school. I borrowed this from the school library. Yes, I was lucky that in my 70s, early 70s school, which was a scary place, I have to say. It had a record library. And if you could get past the big kids, well, actually, it was quite easy to get past the big kids for this because they would never borrow this. I don't know who the person was who was the prefect who was behind ordering things, but they ordered this. In fact, they ordered several Mahavishnu Orchestra albums because I got Birds of Fire out as well. But it was this one. I think this one has the edge, really. It's like nothing else, and I've said before that some of my friends used to say, Mahavishnu Orchestra, whenever you put the needle down, it sounds exactly the same. but it doesn't sound exactly the same. But I think this one, Meetings of the Spirit, Lotus of Irish Streams. Are you listening to those titles, everybody? The Dance of the Mayor. Of course, Steve Morse did that, didn't he, with Dixie Dregs or the Steve Morse Band. Awakening, Vital Transformation. But the lineup is like a who's who of jazz fusion, isn't it? Jazz fusion, this is the invention. This is soaring out of Bitches Brew by Miles Davis. Of course, a place I wouldn't go for decades either, but this I understood. John McLaughlin on guitar. Richie Blackmore was really fast guitarist, Jimmy Page. You know, I understand this stuff. And someone said, listen to this guy. And it was so off the scale. I kind of went, that's jazz. It's not the same. Billy Cobham on drums. A guy who I would really delve into his back catalogue. Just a few years' time, once Tommy Bolin had joined Purple, and I went down the Spectrum rabbit hole. Rick Laird on bass, Jan Hammer on piano, and Jerry Goodman on violin. Great guy, some great albums from The Flock. Superb. This, next to, I think, Return to Forever, Romantic Warrior, are the cornerstones of jazz fusion, jazz rock, really. Get, if you can, find it, the Mahavishnu Orchestra little Columbia albums. It says Columbia albums, but they missed two off, which always seemed weird to me because they could have put the two from 74 and 75 in. But it does have a remastered version of that album in. So it really is good. Next is from 1970. Well, they're all from 1971. Get a grip, Phil. It's Pink Floyd and Meddle. I knew One of These Days from the Go Whistle Test in the early 70s, and I'd heard the album, but I'll be honest here, I didn't get it until the early 80s, very early 80s. It was from W.H. Smith's, and W.H. Smith's, we just got a video player at home, and I'd bought Deep Purple Live at the California Jam for over 40 quid, almost 2/3 of a week's wages for me then. And VHS videos started to come down in price, and what was it called? Rainbow, Straight Between the Eyes, live from Texas. VHS video came out, and I think it was about 20, 25 quid. Still a lot of money. So W.H. Smith's trying to get you to, encourage you to buy video. They had an offer. If you bought a video, you could pick one of 10 albums which will be included in the price. And one of those albums was Meddle by Pink Floyd. So that's how I got my copy eventually. Of course, Echoes is the track. The other strange, they're not strange, but they were to me, the acoustic tracks. It's like, well, what's going on here? But Echoes One of These Days is where it's at, isn't it? And those are still the tracks. And I think that I love the distorted guitar One of These Days. But Echoes is like going on a journey. It's like doing a mindfulness exercise. You just put that on for 20 minutes. You can just switch off from the world, turn down the lights, close the curtains, and escape into the world and the healing power of music. And I think this is one of those songs. It is just sublime. It is Pink Floyd. It is the essence of a band. Again, everything that I've talked about so far came out in the same 12 months. And there's tons of other stuff like Elton John and Joni Mitchell's and stuff that aren't in my playlist because I'm a bit of kind of a rockist mood here this week. But this is superb. Meddle by Pink Floyd. Next, I bought with my own money while I was still at school, Free Live. I forgot to say the Pink Floyd, get the CD, the 2011 remaster, sorry. Free. I've done a separate video on this, but basically it all comes down to one thing. The Alan Freeman show on a Saturday afternoon. I got my little record collection around me. I might have had about 15 albums, perhaps. You know, I got all me Purples and me Status Quos and stuff. And, you know, I think I know what rock is. It's very early on. I got Montrose and stuff. And he plays Mr. Big from this album. and I was just captivated because I was captivated because I was so into guitarists who could play loads of notes, and all of a sudden I'm hearing something where the guitarist basically tears my heart out and pulls it into the speakers playing one note. And the way that the vocalist reacts to that, I honestly looked at my record collection, which was tiny, and thought, I don't have anything that resembles this. I don't have anything that resembles the guttural power of this. What is it? I didn't know terms. It was just rock music. Now it would be filed under blues rock, I suppose. But I just hadn't got anything that was like it. And I looked at my pocket money. I was getting 40p a week, and I bought this. This was the early 70s. It wasn't 71. It's probably could be 74ish, I think. And I bought this, and this is my original copy with the with the kind of envelope and all the rest of it, and this is the original one. Now, don't bother going after an original. You want to get either the 2016 one, which is probably the best one sounding, or the other one, the one with the extra tracks on. Because if you listen to that, or Songs of Yesterday, the box set, the mix, it is crystal clear. It's like you're sitting in front of Free now in 2025. The original live album sounds like there's a blanket over it, or you're listening through the windows outside the venue. That's what it sounded like to me, compared with the remastered version. And it's not. I wouldn't say it was a perfect selection of live tracks either, because it's a single album, and there weren't many single live albums then, really. And also there's a studio track on there as well, Get Where I Belong, which is heart-achingly beautiful. But really, there are two tracks on this album which dovetail together, Mr. Big and the Hunter, which basically brings together everything that Paul Kossoff was about. Those high notes, those sustain, and that tremolo effect he had through his fingers at this point. To this day, if I had to pick tracks that would have to be on my phone, if, the world's ending, we can only take a few tracks, Mr. Big from Free Live would be on that. It just makes me feel so lucky to have been here now to be able to hear that. If you're a budding guitarist, listen to that. If you're feeling that the world's getting on top of you, listen to that. Listen to the way it comes out of the solo and the bass solo by Andy Fraser, and Rogers comes back in. You'll feel better. You'll feel more confident. Next, Jethro Tull, Aqualung. I didn't get this until the late 70s, and I only bought it because I thought I haven't got any Jethro Tull, because I was looking around to things that I wanted to get into, and I bought this, and I bought Stand Up a few weeks later, and I prefer Stand Up. There was something about the way the production. I knew Aqualung, the track. It was played at rock discos, and I knew the Cross-Eyed Mary, and I knew the other track, My God. But I didn't really gel with it as much as I thought I would. That's different now, of course, and the one I would recommend is the Super Deluxe book version by Long Chalk, really, and I've also the Stephen Wilson remix, which I've got on vinyl. But it was more about the cover, because I was one of those people that thought that was Ian Anderson on the front. But there was something again very unusual. Again, think about it. In 1971, everything I'm showing you is coming out in the same 12 months, and not one thing is like the other thing I'm showing you, if you understand what I mean. There's nothing coming out that go, it's a bit like that. You won't hear me say at any point in time, it's a bit like this that I've just shown you. So all these albums that came out in that year, 1971, are completely unique and stand alone. Nobody's following anybody through the woods. Everyone's making their own trail here. There's no template here, apart from the one they're inventing themselves. No one's Googling what we should do next. They're all just doing what they feel they want to do. Next is a band that's become one of my firm favourites, Wishbone Ash. This is 1971. The version to get, unfortunately or fortunately, is in the Vintage Years box set because it sounds superb, but that's £1 trillion now, so you won't be able to find it. So you just get the single CD version, but of course it's the Pilgrim and Vaz Diz, that jazz scat vocal thing at the beginning that really sets them apart from anything else. Of course, the next album was going to be Argos, which was going to be one of the best albums of 1972. It even got voted the best album of 1972 in Sounds newspaper. But this is an album that there's only one track. It's Where Were You Tomorrow, isn't it? It's that live one, and then as if like, why did they do that? 10 minutes of it. It's like, surely. It's a bit of a letdown compared with everything else on the record, because everything else is great. Jailbout, of course, is a typical, almost crowish rock song, really. But lovely guitar playing. Wishbone Ash, Pilgrimage, that cover, and all the band. Love this. Wishbone Ash, Pilgrimage, 1971. Gosh, thank you for staying with me. I've got 4 left. Now, the last 4, strangely enough, this is actually might work quite well. You've got to remember that at this point in time, well, early 70s, it's all about 1971, I was really interested in heavy music, as it was called then. The phrase heavy metal wasn't really used. It was heavy rock, hard rock, whatever. So I wanted to hear music. That was the music that did it for me, that got me out of being not very good at school, which I wasn't. So it just helped me. I was awkward early teenager, didn't really fit in, wasn't very good at sport. So music was my escape mechanism. And I was listening to Slade and T-Rex and all that kind of stuff. And one of my friends said, you need to move on. You need to move into Rory Gallagher. And I thought, what's a Rory Gallagher? So he didn't arrive for a while. But he said, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. So the first place I went was he played me tracks from Led Zeppelin II and Led Zeppelin IV. And let's be honest, if you're from that vintage, this is prior to Physical Graffiti. That was about a year away. It just said Led Zeppelin II, Led Zeppelin IV. Of course, my favourite album is Led Zeppelin I by the band. But anyway, this was Led Zeppelin II, Led Zeppelin IV. Led Zeppelin II had a whole lot of love, obviously, and Heartbreaker and stuff. But it also had Moby Dick and Lemon Song, which I didn't connect to that well. And then he put Led Zeppelin IV on. Black Dog, Rock and Roll, Battle of Evermore, Stairway, boom. I understood. And of course, on the other side, I wasn't quite sure the first 2 opening tracks, I have to say, and I still don't actually bond brilliantly with those. Why? I don't know. I just never have. I think it's the riffs sound, careful Phil, Four Sticks and Misty Mountain Hop, they just sound a bit, I don't know, they don't sound either menacing enough or angry enough, or I don't know, they just don't. But going to California does that makes me think of cheesecloth shirts and stuff. And When the Levee Breaks, that was the one again. So side one, and When the Levee Breaks. When the Levee Breaks, that drum, obviously the drum sound, and the way it moves towards the end. There's no Walkmans. So you listen and you record it in your brain. You record the music. I can't play it on my phone. You listen to music so intently that you memorize the phrasing and the words and the music and what the bass player's doing, the guitar. You hear it like a cinema playing back in your head. So as you walk to school or whatever, the whole thing in real time is playing back to you. And that's probably one of the reasons why these records are there when I press a button mentally in my subconscious, because of how I listened to them. Because I hadn't got a tape player, I couldn't record them. I had to play it in the record player, and then I had to leave the house without my music, so it had to be memorized. And that is what that album meant to me. Next was Deep Purple, and of course I have to say it was in rock, and it was Machine Head, and it was made in Japan. So I've got to pick the 1971 equivalent, which was Fireball. This was not my favourite Purple album at the time because of the way I listened to in rock, Machine Head, made in Japan, Burn, and then I went back through the back catalogue and borrowed this from school. And of course, it had Anyone's Daughter on, and No, 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 which I've actually mentioned as one of Richie's finest moments, was a song that I didn't quite understand. It wasn't a fast riff. And the other side with No One Came was a bit kind of jokey lyrics. But now, of course, this is the one that everyone at school should listen to because it's so adventurous, it's so experimental. Fireball is like speed metal template for something that wasn't going to arrive for another 15 years. And it is such an amazing album. Deep Purple. And the cover got to number 1 in the charts, didn't it? That cover, that's really angsty attitude, isn't it? All coming out, you know, heading off into space. Fireball. Racing like a fireball, dancing like a ghost. Gemini, I don't know. It's what I like the most. But live pictures, it was always very typical thing to do then. You'd have live pictures of the band, although it wasn't a live album. People don't do that anymore. And of course, in America, you didn't get Demon's Eye, but you got Strange Kind of Woman, which I didn't know anything about until hearing Man in Japan. But I wanted heavy music. Sorry that those of you watching, I didn't take Led Zeppelin down fast enough. The next one is Black Sabbath. But before I move on there, I realise I haven't kept in time with telling you which versions to get of things. Led Zeppelin, I know not everyone likes the more recent remasters. I do. That's just my personal opinion. So I recommend the 2 CD set. And for Fireball, the 25th anniversary edition has tons of extra tracks on and sounds lovely. Massive Reality by Black Sabbath. This did it to me. This was probably when I was heading off to work, to be honest. I mean, I knew Paranoid and the first Black Sabbath album I bought when I was at school, and Sabotage and Volume 4. But it wasn't until I just started work where I was thinking about what else I could buy. Because when I say what else I could buy, I bought singles, and someone said it's in one of the comments on one of the videos, and albums was something I got for birthdays and Christmas. And so I'd try, with the money I got, was always to try and buy 2 albums. It was a real big treat for me. And I think I can't remember what else I bought with this. But I remember, in fact, it could have been Fireball, actually. And I bought it from a shop called Cyclops in Birmingham, run by the most miserable couple, man and woman, married couple you could ever meet in your whole life. They were quite elderly to my young eyes, and they obviously hated music. They hated running a music shop, and they hated anyone that liked music to come in and buy it. I mean, anyone that lived in Birmingham at this point and knows a record shop called Cyclops, you know exactly what I mean. He used to cover some of the records up in the shop, and when you tried to look underneath the cardboard, he used to shout at you to get out. One of my friends took a record back, and they refused to replace it, so he sat on the floor until the police came. They would check the records for you before you left the shop, and they'd say, if you come back, you've scratched it. He did also have the cheapest records in the whole of Birmingham, which is why everyone went. But anyway, Master Reality, why is it special? It's not special to me because of Children of the Grave, because it's not one of my favourite Sabbath tracks. Embryo, and Orchid, Solitude is. I like that track. After Forever, which is the most Christian song you'll ever hear, Hiding in Plain Sight. Sweet Leaf, oh, what a riff. Glory of this World, It is, of course, Into the Void. That is one of the heaviest, most sludgy, heavy metal riffs. Again, 1971, the word heavy metal wasn't really being bandied about. That riff and the way that it's just, to this day, it's one of the heaviest guitar riffs of all time, and it's one of the most powerful songs. And that the solo part, and this is the land of real stereo. And when you're going to have a solo, you have the different things in your, it's stereo. It's not 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock in your soundscape. It's like the whole range till 5 o'clock in the afternoon here and 5 in the morning, and moving across your ears. But the guitar tone, this is the one, isn't it? When this is Sabbath. I think this is the most Sabbath-sounding Sabbath album with the most Sabbath-sounding guitar riff is Into the Void from Master Reality from 1971. It just sums them up. I know you get Paranoid and War Pigs and stuff and the later stuff, but I think if you're going to say someone says, tell me something, show me something, play me something that shows that Black Sabbath were really heavy. Into the Void from Master Reality. Turn that up, and I promise you, any termites or whatever lives in the foundation of your house will be packing their bags before you get to the second verse. In fact, a lot of Sabbath stuff always sounds, the more you turn it up, I think that probably the louder it gets to anyone who lives underneath you. Not necessarily to you because of the frequency range. Anyway, that is Black Sabbath and Master Reality. There's one more album, and this is when I'd found Led Zeppelin, I'd found Black Sabbath, I'd found Deep Purple. There must be someone heavier. There must be something heavier. I went to the school library, and I was saying to the guy, the older kid behind the screen, whatever, what else have you got that's like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple? Is there anybody else? Is this, or are they the three and everything else sits underneath them? And he went, there is someone else. And I went, who? And he said, there's a band called Uriah Heep. Uriah Heep. Isn't that like something to do with Charles Dickens? I don't know, is it? Well, it is, but that's where the name was from. But Uriah Heep, he said, listen to this. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. Look at that cover. You can look at yourself. How clever is that? That's why it's so hard to find a version of this that looks any good, because they're all knackered. So I did. I took this one home. And I remember one of my mates, Wes, used to come round and call for me in the morning on the way to school. And I used to, my dad had gone to work, so I'd put a record on. And I said, if you think we've heard heavy music, Wes, you think we've heard it? You think what we've heard is really heavy? He was going, yeah. You haven't. You've got to listen to Uriah Heep. And I put on Love Machine, that riff, it's just gets gallops away, doesn't it? And of course, Tears in Your Eyes, Look at Yourself, and bearing in mind, of course, I knew about Child in Time, and although Look at Yourself has got nothing to do with Child in Time, it has a Child in Time feel to it, and that riff, that hypnotic riff, and that feel to July Morning, it's just, I think it was the gateway to me realising that, Phil, that beyond riffs is melody. I just, to this day, I think, that, which is the best version? Live 73 or this one? You need them both. Ken Hensley, Mick Box. Oh, this Gary Thane's not here yet. But what an album. Which version? Get the remastered CD, if you can still get it. A lot of Uriah Heep stuff is out of print now. That needs to be sorted, by the way. Look at Yourself, Uriah Heep. Marvellous stuff. Great album. Absolutely. In fact, everything I've shown you today is a great album, and that is what I'm playing this week. I know there were others from this year I could have picked, but as I said, it's not the best album of 71. It's just the stuff that I picked off the shelves to play. And I hope you found it relatively enjoyable, and we talk in the way I have, rather than saying what all the chart positions were and who engineered it. You can find that on Wikipedia, but maybe you can't always find my stories on Wikipedia. Anyway, maybe that's a good thing. Anyway, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for all of your messages and comments of support. It really does make a difference to me doing these for you. And as I've said before, You're not alone if you love music. You're not alone if you play physical music and you want someone to talk to and think, yeah, I'm going to play that. It doesn't matter how old it is. It doesn't matter if it's 6 months old or whether it's 50 odd plus years old. Some of us are older than that even, but we're still relevant. And rock and roll keeps you young. It does. It's the music and the healing, don't you know? So if you'd like a T-shirt to walk around wherever you live, whichever part of the world, you can find those link from the website or down below in the description here. Please subscribe. Ring that bell. It makes a difference. It means that the algorithm thingy will push out my videos so more people will stumble across what I do here. And if you can help a bit more by becoming a Patron YouTube member, you'll get videos that don't go anywhere else. Lots of personal stories in those, and you can also join the Facebook group, which is only for patrons, YouTube members now, and the WhatsApp group, which is the same. And there's more. Yep, you can come to a pub, a virtual pub, but it's a great one. It's called the Now Spinning Arms, and we meet up twice a month to chat about music and get to know each other a bit better. So keep spinning those discs. Take care, everybody, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.